Okay, we are winding down the life of Christ and getting to the end. We have more material to cover than I have time to cover. That's due to God shutting our class down with bad weather numerous times. Here, I still don't think he will be able to teach John. But anyway, because he definitely caused us to be running behind. But we're going to cover it tonight. I'm going to assume that most of you are quite familiar with the material we're going to cover. So I'm not going to spend the time reading it to you or having it read. I don't like doing that because I think it's very important that we read God's word, but in an effort to try to get through the material and come out on the other side, I'm going to do that tonight. We're looking at chapter, beginning of chapter 18. You see Jesus and with the disciples out of the way, the place where he used to pray. Obviously, he was there a great deal of the time because people knew where to go to find him. We know that because the men come, a mob comes to capture Jesus, and they come with swords and torches and all this stuff, and they're ready to do battle. I assume they're ready for whatever it takes to get him rounded up, as it were. And I find that interesting. The reason I find it interesting is because they are going to arrest a man using swords and torches who can walk on water and raise the dead. Why do they think they're going to be successful? I mean, it defies logic if you think about it. Why would you even attempt to arrest a man? And and it's not like they don't know that he's raised the dead. They don't know that he's walked on water. They don't know that he's done all these things. And yet they think that they're going to walk out there and put some kind of fear of God into him, I guess, and arrest him and bring him back to stand trial. Well, they do go out there, and Judas is with them. It says, it's interesting the things that John leaves out. If you know the way the four gospels are written, each writer puts in and takes out things accordingly. But it's kind of interesting some of the things that John does leave out. One is he doesn't have Judas kissing Jesus and betraying him directly. Judas is with the mob, so I assume he's giving them direction how to get there. And because I know he does kiss Jesus in the other gospels, I know that's what took place. I often wondered why it was such a mystery how to find Jesus. Every picture I saw, he had a halo on. He was home. I mean, you're dead. They just walk out there and there he'd be. I don't know why they needed all the extra manpower there to find him. But anyway, in John's version, when John mentions this, the others don't, Jesus asks who you're looking for. And they say, he says, well, I'm here. And they all fall back. And they do this and it happens 3 times. Why does it happen? Why is that necessary? What is the point of going through that process? Well, mainly, Jesus is proving that he lays down. He says, I lay down my life. No man takes it from me. It's quite obvious that they would have no problem. He would have no problem escaping this mob that's come to get him because they can't even stand up and take him.
Well, the last mob that tried to get him, he just walked out.
Yeah, he walked out between, he disappeared, walk between them, because he's done that before too, and they tried to kill him and different people, but They tried to kill him, and he just sort of disappeared, walked through the crowd, and came out on the other side. But the main idea is that it's a proof of his power, a proof of who he is, as, as though they needed any further proof. And then you have the story or the illustration of Peter coming to his rescue. And Peter takes out his sword because he said he would defend him to the death. And he takes a swipe and at a servant. I would always start with a servant. That seems wise to me too. Probably the servant wasn't armed, so it probably gave him a better advantage in this. But the servant manages to duck, just so happened, and Peter cuts off his ear. Now, what's interesting here? I don't know if you've ever noticed this or not, but Jesus says, of course, put up your sword. If I wanted legions of angels, I could call in legions and protect me. I don't need you, Peter, doing this now. This is God's will, and we're going to go through it. However, if you notice, John stopped right there. So you, without the other gospels, you wouldn't know. They just put Malchus, back on. Because John doesn't mention it. And I think that's fascinating. The miracle is, John does not put the miracle in that we know exists. Now, it's very interesting as you go through the gospel, because unless you've got a almost photographic memory, it's hard to remember which part of which story is in which gospel. You know the story. You've read the story. But if you're talking to somebody and you say, and you're using John, for example, and you say, and then you reattach the ear, miraculously, and the person reading this goes, really? I don't read that here. Now, what is important about that? And I've got a whole lesson built on this. I'm going to give you the very fast Reader's Digest version because I was planning to give you the full version, but I don't have time. It takes all four gospels to get the full complete story of Peter and the servants here. Each writer gives you another part of one writer, which year it was, which hand he used. But all this is scattered out over the four gospels. Here you find out what his name is. The other three don't mention what his name is. Now, what is the significance of mentioning all this? Well, the significance is this. I have a series, which I did not create. It's stolen. I took it, but still very good, called The Servants Here. And it starts off going through the four illustrations or the recounting through the four gospels and how you need all four to get the full story. And then you begin to tie that into other scripture, and what you end up doing is showing the person that they must not pick one verse from the Bible to determine what to do to be saved. It takes the entire New Testament, it goes through and shows how you go with this scripture and this scripture. And a lot of people want to, I don't want to go to all that. Just give me one verse and be done with it. I'm going to keep having it in one verse any more than you can figure out the story of the servants here without reading all four accounts. So I would have done that tonight, but we don't have time. But if you'd like a copy, then I can get it for you. All right. So this is put up your sword. This is not the time and place for what you're trying to do. All right. So now we fall into the trial part of the evening. And this is in the night. And the Jews are very interested in getting the trial over with quickly. Why? Because tomorrow it's getting late into the Sabbath and all the preparation, all this, and they need him to be convicted and hopefully crucified before the Sabbath, because you certainly wouldn't want to be involved with any of this on the Sabbath. God didn't make the Sabbath to crucify people on. So this is, they are in a hurry. Now that's going to be important for a point I'm going to share with you in just a minute. John goes ahead to tell us that two disciples followed Jesus at a distance as they're taking him to trial. Now everybody else scatters. All the disciples run off, except these two. And these two are not very close. I mean, they're far enough back, they're not likely to be a threat. So therefore, they're not, the Jews are not worried about them or trying to stop them. And the two that followed, when Jesus enters the courtyard of the high priest, are Peter and John. Now, it says that Peter stood afar off, and it was at night. It was cold, not cold as in frigidly cold, but cold enough that a fire felt good. So depending on how you want to interpret that as to how cold it was, that would depend on what your temperature is and how cold it has to get before you think a fire feels good. But anyway, Peter's standing by the fire, and he's asked by three different people, or at least accused or stated, however you want to word it, that aren't you one of his disciples? Because Jesus is on trial. And he answers the first one, no, I'm not. The second one, no, I'm not. The third one is a girl. Now, the significance of it being a girl is that Peter's made the statement earlier, if you recall, to Jesus, I will die for you. I will not deny you. And Jesus, you will. You'll deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And Peter, of course, says, no, I won't, Lord. I wouldn't even consider doing that. It only takes a young girl to bring Peter to his knees real quick by saying, are you one of them? He goes, and he curses, no way. I mean, he brings down curses. I am telling the truth, as it were, if we were saying it, something that's like, by God, I am telling the truth. He brings a direct cursing. If I'm not telling the truth, may lightning strike me kind of idea. And then he says, no, I'm not one of your disciples. And what happens? The cock crows. Now, I think, and I don't know, maybe you've read this. I've not. And I've read quite a bit trying to find it, because I can't believe that I'm the first person to think it up. So there's got to be other people out there who thought this up too. When do roosters crow? At sun. What time is it now? Well, I don't know the exact time, but what is it outside? It's dark. Is that not a miracle? When a rooster crows in the middle of the night, God can make a rooster crow. I don't know how it kept him awake, but or made him decide to crow. But I think it's interesting because I have never seen it. Years ago, I was going through this, and it dawned on me that we have a miracle that's often overlooked. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's the miracle of the rooster crowing. Now, while all this is going on the outside, what's going on the inside? Well, they're making accusations against Christ and asking questions. And where does they go? What do they want him to do? They want him to say something that they can absolutely tie him to make sure he's crucified and guilty. Now, why is crucifixion necessary? I know it fulfills prophecy. I know that. But what is the significance? What is the Jewish law? Okay, if you are blaspheming, and that's what they're trying to get him to do, which they've accused him of that before, because he keeps saying he's the Son of God, and they keep saying no, you're not, and you're blaspheming because you can't do that. Or they call him the Son of Beelzebub when he does miracles and heals people and so forth. Notice this is, and he says, I'm not the son of Beelzebub, I'm the Son of God. And of course, here they are again, faced with the same problem of getting him to admit that he is, and then trying to do something about it. Okay, now, what is the punishment by Mosaic law? What is the punishment for blasphemy? I'll give you a hint. It's death. Now, but death what?
Usually stoning, well down.
Do what?
Usually stoning.
Of course, it's stoning. But that's not how Jesus is going to die.
Well, they couldn't do it because they were under Roman.
Prophecy's already been made that Christ is going to die on a tree. So how in the world are we going to get that to work? Because on top of that, remember when we talk about the woman caught in adultery and they're ready to stone her, or they say, isn't that what she deserves? And I suggested to you then that it was against the law for the Jews to kill anybody. You know, I mean, it's just against the law. You can't do that. So really the test was to see if Jesus would go against Roman law and say, yes, she should be stoned, because that would break Jewish law. And they thought they would have him that way, which instead he said he who is without sin cast the first stone. They're always seeing, they all drop their rocks and go home. Okay. But now, moving on down to now, here's the issue. Jesus has to die, and he has to die by means of crucifixion. So how do you get a blasphemy charge, which has nothing to do with Roman law? As far as Roman law is concerned, you can blaspheme all day long here. And they got multiple gods anyway. I mean, you know, they're not, it's not wrong. It does not break Roman law to blaspheme God. So what do they end up charging Jesus with? How do they get him crucified? Well,
Claiming to be a king.
do what?
Claiming to be a king.
Right. He is an insurrectionist. That's a word you'll be familiar with, if in fact you've watched the news in the last 2 years. But he is being charged with being an insurrectionist because he's claiming to be a king, and the Jews say we have no other king but
Caesar.
Caesar. Aha. So now we got it. Now he's done something to break Roman law. All right. You know, he goes to the Roman governor. We ship him back and forth between all these different legal aspects. And again, I know you are aware of this. He ends up standing before Pilate. Well, Pilate's got a problem, because Pilate can't figure out what's wrong. Now remember, you can't, I mean, he blasphemed all day long. As far as Pilate's concerned, no big deal. I mean, and if the Jews are upset about this, let them take care of it. Now they can take care of it, but they can't kill it. They can't stone him. They can't put him to death. and shove him off the side of the mountain, which is, by the way, what they tried to do earlier. If you will recall, that's one reason they did that, because you can shove somebody off a mountain or off a cliff, but you can't throw rocks at them, okay? So you can't intentionally kill them, but you have to accidentally bump into them strongly and knock them off the mountain, and so be it, you've accomplished what you intended to do. So when you think about all these things, they all fit with a plan that God created before eternity, before the world was made. All these things have to come together, quote, just right. Now we look at it, we go, my word, how could you possibly, get all that to work? For God, it's nothing. It's simple. He speaks it and it happens. So I don't think he and Jesus were up there necessarily discussing this along with how we're going to get this and what does this happen. You want to No, it's going to work the way God intends for it to work, just like everything works today, the way God intends for it to work. We would have never put all this together had we been looking at it in the time they were looking at it. There's no way that they could have seen all this. However, from our point of view, we're looking at it and go, isn't that interesting? How all this just came together just right. The right people are in the right place. The right person there's a person who is greedy and a thief. He's just in the right place to betray Christ. The amount of silver he gets, and he's taken into custody just like the Bible says he will be, except for fulfillment of prophecy, because he obviously doesn't have to be. He can resist and win if he wants to. He doesn't. So all these things just happen to come together, and this is some more of fulfillment of prophecy as he goes through these trials and is faced with the question. Now, Pilate's going to say, what are you here for? And he's going to say, what? I wouldn't be here unless what? The Father wanted me to be here. And I'm making this very brief. There's a lot of, there are many lessons to be drawn from all this material. I know we are going through it quickly. I'm hoping to hit things maybe you might not have thought of. I don't know. Or perhaps you have. But there are many other statements and many other lessons. There's a lot of things that could be brought up. But what does Jesus say about the kingdom? This is my kingdom. Well, which I'm king. Granted, that's true. But my kingdom is what? Not of this world. Okay. I have a spiritual kingdom, not a physical kingdom. Which kind of shoots a premillennialist in the foot just in passing. It's not of this world. It'll never be of this world. It's not intended to be of this world. And so Pilate goes, well, okay, if that's true, I'm still confused. Why are you here, so to speak? Because obviously you're not a threat to Rome. And he said, you're right. But if it weren't for me, the kingdom I'm bringing would never come to existence. And the people who are part of my kingdom, a spiritual kingdom, will be there because they listen to me. My kingdom, my words are true. To which Pilate replies, what is truth. Now, as I've gone over that through the years, I really didn't think much about that. But as I am having watched how our society has gone, we now live in a society. We've always lived in this society, it's just more prevalent now, but we live in a society that doesn't know what truth is. Truth is what you want it to be. Truth is something that changes with time, over time, according to our society. What is truth? Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but through me. I am truth. There's only one thing that you can put your full weight and confidence in as being truth, and that's Jesus Christ and Him crucified. Everything else can be changed. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is a lie. It's not. But everything potentially can be turned into a lie, except that. That's the only thing that I know for absolute certainty, which of course includes God and all the spiritual aspects of it. But the point is that things that we thought were true may not be. It was thought years ago, many, many years ago, that in fact the statement was made that if God wanted me to fly, give him wings. Man can't fly. Well, man still can't fly in the sense of like a bird, but he can get on a bird and fly. Okay? So things that were true have always been true, but we don't always know what truth is. Truth doesn't change, but we don't always know what it is. There's always been DNA, but only in the last few, decades have we discovered what it is, where it is, and how to use it. Was it always there? Yeah. Was it true back then? Yeah. Could we have known, could we have solved crimes years ago using DNA? Yeah. Why didn't we? Because we didn't know everything. God knows. Huh. How old is the earth? That's a question that's kind of interesting. Is there a way to find truth to how old the world is? Is there a absolute exact date, as it were, of how old the world is? The answer is yes, that we found it. No. We've got people saying, it's so many thousand years old. What are they basing it on? Well, all kinds of theories. They look at the strata of the earth. They look at the rings on the tree. They look on this and that and whatever. And they come up with these statements. There's a problem with the logic. No matter what kind of test man develops to figure out how old the world is, he has no way of knowing at what age it was created. This tree is so many years old, assuming God created it as a seed in the ground and it grew this many years, or this strata of earth, or however they're going to do it. Problem is, God can make something look older than it is, or he make it look much younger than it really is. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't think there is one. Don't think we'll ever find one. Because I think the only way to figure that out is using the scriptures, and the scriptures don't say. Now, I know there have been attempts made at determining all that by looking at the generations in Genesis. And by that, men have concluded, the earth is so old, or it was created so many years BC. But that assumes that every generation and every aspect God put in the Bible. Not that it isn't right, it's right, absolutely correct. But did God intentionally leave material out so we couldn't figure all this out? I suggest He did. God allows us to learn things that are true, that have always been true, but we just know that we learn them over time. When Jesus doesn't react right, Pilate gets more scared. I mean, he doesn't cower, he doesn't change. And Pilate begins to be even more afraid of who is this. Luke also records that the Jews threatened Pilate by saying, if you allow Jesus to go free, then you'll go free to Caesar's, and you can be charged with sedition. That's the Jews. They're going to get him killed. They're determined to get him killed. They go to a whole lot of trouble here because he's ready to die anyway. I mean, they're working on something that really doesn't have to be worked on. Of course, this is all God's plan. Don't I understand that? What I'm saying is they're trying to build a airtight case to make sure they have him, to make sure they get Jesus killed. And Jesus basically is going, I'm going. Don't worry about it. You got me. So eventually, Pilate, and not all this is recorded here, but he gets Jesus back and he says, do you know that I have power of life and death over you? What's Jesus' response? Does he argue with him? No, he agrees with him. You're right. Except you wouldn't have any power at all, except my Father gave it to you. Which goes again to establish the point that none of this is by accident. None of it is outside the realm of God. Everything happening is on a timetable course that God and Christ set up in the beginning. Significance of that point is this. What is the purpose of the Gospel of John? These things are written that you might believe. Okay, we're showing over and over and over and over that Jesus is the Son of God because he is not threatened by man. Man's trying to threaten him. Man's trying to buzz him out, trying to get a confession out of him. And Jesus going, I'll confess to whatever I confess to is true. Now, you say I'm blaspheming because I say I'm the Son of God? I'm not blaspheming. I'm not breaking the law. Because you see, I can say that. I'm the only person here ever on the earth that could say that and be right. That's just like when God asked Adam about eating the fruit, and Adam no doubt said, well, everybody else is doing it, which is true. At that moment in time, everybody else is eating the fruit as well, because it was just him and Eve. Okay, side note, that has nothing to do with this lesson. But anyway, Pilate has him scourged. That was typical in cases like this, thinking that this might satisfy him. But it's not going to satisfy him because God doesn't want him just scourged. And God intended him to be scourged. That's prophecy. So we know he's going to be scourged, but that's not going to be the end of the story because he has to be crucified. Take him away, crucified. So I crucified the king, Pilate asked. We have no king but Caesar, the chief priest. The chief priest answered. That's interesting. Notice that's not the mob. It's specifically the chief priest. So things have gotten quiet enough. I know there's enough of a lull that you can distinguish the chief priest from everybody else. As the chief priest, he said that we have no king but Caesar. Finally, Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus. All right. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Here they crucified him, and with two others, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle. I'm sure you know, but just for clarification, whatever. Crucifixion, you did not believe in death. For many years, I thought you did because I was a kid and I assumed all butter in it. And that would be horribly painful. I'm not trying to minimize that, but that's not what you die. What do you die? You die
Lack of oxygen.
suffocation. Why? Because when you're in the Romans have developed a perfect means of execution to make it last as long as you possibly could. And as they would nail the person to the cross, and they knew exactly where to put the nails, they knew exactly where to put his hands, they knew exactly where to put his feet, and his knees were bent enough that he could push up. And when the pain in his wrist began to be too painful, he would drop down. But when you drop down and your arms are in that position, and they knew the exact position, it shuts off your oxygen. So you can't stay there very long. So you push yourself back up on the cross and get another breath of air. And then until the pain gets too great, your feet on your hands, and you have to drop back down again. This goes over and over and over and over and over and over until you finally don't have the energy or strength to raise yourself back up, and you will die of suffocation. Now, that then is the reason for the reason that they would break the legs of the people, and when they reached a point that needed to get them dead, and then let them suffer as much as they wanted to. In this case, it's because the Sabbath coming in, they want to get everything out of the way and over and done with. They break the legs, and when you break the man's legs, then he can no longer push himself back up on the cross, and his death comes very quickly at that point. Pilate is still feeling bad about it. I mean, I think I'm not sympathetic to Pilate. I think Pilate could have done something different than what he did, but he does, I think, more than taught the Jews than to recognize Christ. He has a sign made, and it says, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And of course, the Jews get upset over that, and they want him to change it to say, he said he was the King of the Jews. And Pilate says, what I've written. And so Pilate, without necessarily knowing it, I guess you'd say, what does he do? He acknowledges God.
Yes. What is truth, and then stated.
And then wrote the truth on the sign that you put above Jesus' head. So in some ways you have this Roman, person who has no feeling toward God one way or the other as being more faithful and accurate than you do the Jews standing before the cross who claim to be God's children. But it's Pilate who makes more of an acknowledgement than of truth than the Jews did. All right. Then the next section deals with the casting of lots for Jesus' cloak. And why did that happen? Because it was prophesied it would happen. Now, near the cross, verse 25 of chapter 19, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved, which would be John, standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Dear woman, here is your son." And to the disciple, "Here is your mother." From that time on, the disciple, John, took her, Mary, into his home. Later, knowing that all was completed, and so the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said, "I'm thirsty." A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked the sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of hyssop plant, and lifted it up to Jesus' lips. When he had received a drink, he said, "It is finished." With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Now, what's finished? Crucifixion's finished. Death on the cross is finished. His mission on earth is finished. His sacrificial trip is finished. He no longer has to meet temptation, which, by the way, he meant more than just when Satan tempted him in the wilderness. Okay, that was specifically aimed at him, but there was a lot of temptations throughout his life. It's finished. It's over. Paul will say, "I've fought the good fight, I finished the course, forgive the faith, and there's laid up a crown of righteousness." Just that finally it's over. Now, it was the day of preparation. The next day was a special Sabbath. Because the Jews didn't want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and the bodies taken out. But when they get to Jesus, he's already dead. Is that significant? Yes. Why is that significant?
Couldn't break his legs. It was prophesied that his bones would be broken.
Right. There's prophecy that his bones will not be broken. I have no doubt that that's true. I have often wondered, with all the abuse he took getting to the cross, and he's punched, he's kicked, he's, all this stuff. He's scourged on top of that. Can't help but wonder if there's not a little bit of a miracle there that none of his bones were broken. I can't imagine going through scourging and it not normally cracking your ribs or something, because you're just whacked over and over and over, and skin's pulled off, and the bones are more available to being broken. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say it's a miracle, so I'm not going to say that it is. It doesn't say rooster is either. And I suggested that was a miracle, so I'm going to suggest that consider the possibility then maybe the protection of Jesus' bones was as much a miracle as some other thing, but God didn't choose to call it out as a miracle. Doesn't mean it wasn't, doesn't mean it is, and ultimately it doesn't really matter. All right. So then you have the piercing of Jesus' side, blood and water comes out, and you have a statement that I want to mention to you, that the soldier who says, truly this must be the Son of God. Now, I know I'm keeping you a minute or two, but I'm gonna make this point. Depending on your understanding and the way it's translated, the S in son is not capitalized. And it is possible, this is gonna be heartbreaking to many of you who have grown up, but it's possible that the soldier wasn't acknowledging Jesus Christ as the Son of God, but rather acknowledging that he was a son of a God, not Jehovah God. I don't know, but according to the way the Greek is written, it's a possibility that he's not acknowledging what we've always thought he acknowledged. And the reason that to me is interesting is because unless he knew a whole lot about Jesus, just watching him die on the cross, seeing him die would be a miraculous death in the sense that his legs aren't broken. But would he really have known he was this? How would he have known that this man they just crucified was the Jesus Christ, the Son of God, Jehovah? Don't know. Maybe he did. If he did, he did. If he didn't, he didn't. But there is some debate as to whether or not he's calling him the Son of Jehovah, as it were. All right. So we will pick it up from there. I will tell you one thing very quickly that you already know, but I want to make sure it's said before I quit. Jesus will be buried, but Jesus will be resurrected. Now, I tell you that, not because you don't know it, but years ago, Olive Price, some of you would recognize the name, many of you won't. She was an old-timey Bible class teacher that wrote a lot of books and songs, all kinds of stuff back in the 50s. She was kind of the godmother of Sunday school for little kids. One of her statements was, do not ever let the class end and Christ be left in the grave. Because she said, you don't know whether that kid will be back or not. He may never know that he's resurrected. So if you have to stop after his death before you get to his resurrection, be sure and tell the class that he will be and was resurrected, which we'll talk about next Wednesday afternoon. So now you know that, so you don't have to worry. We're going to get to his resurrection next week.